everybody, Jeff, your executive gardener here. This will be the final episode of the composting series. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do the third episode for the composting series on, and because of all the comments and all the questions that I get from the videos that I did, the two previous videos, it's going to be on worm composting, because worm composting is the thing that intrigues most people. It's kind of the most fun to do, quite frankly, of all composting, but it's relatively simple. So what I'm going to do is show you what I do to worm compost, what the cost is, and how you can get started quickly if you want to do worm composting like I do. So let me get started here, and I'll tell you all you need, what the cost is. You can determine if it's right for you, okay? But this is worm casting the executive gardener's way, okay? There's other ways to do it. So, and I've had my worms for about 2 years right now, maybe a little over 2 years. So I use something called the worm in. So these are these two. I have two of them. One here and one here. One of them has African night crawlers. The other has red wigglers, and we'll talk about the difference between each, okay? This is how I do it. I found it to be the best way. You can look up on Amazon the worm in. Worm I-N-N, worm in. Costs about $90 plus shipping, but this is, I'll give you a close-up. You get a bag here. You do have to get the PVC pipe from a Home Depot, but they give you instructions to tell you what to get. Super easy. See, I've tried 4 or 5 different methods of composting, different systems. This is what I find to be the simplest, and I like simple. So in addition to the worm in investment you need to make, you need to have a paper shredder, okay? Basic office paper shredder. That'll cost you $30 at Walmart, okay? That's what I use when I show you a close-up. You need to shred your paper up. The smaller things are, the easier it is for worms to digest. That's your carbon source. So a paper shredder, you need paper, okay? You can use newspaper, you can shred that, but do not shred color ink. Do not shred glossy paper, but you can, I just shred normal recycled office paper. It's cheap, it's easy to use, and I'll show you what I do here. And you need food scraps. Hopefully you and your family eat your leftover scraps, that the bananas and the apples that go bad. All you gotta do is slice them up in little bit pieces, or you don't have to. Put them in there, they'll devour it. I'll show you what's in my bin. Then the only other thing I would recommend, I talked about this in a previous video, is Purina worm chow. These things, I think I got a 1 or 2 pound bag for $6 on eBay. Very easy to use, very easy for the worms to take in, okay? So the other thing you need is temperature between, I'd say 50 to 60 to 90 degrees, okay? That's really your ideal temperature. Red wigglers don't like the intense heat, but African night crawlers can get up to 100 degrees. So in Houston, as you can imagine, it gets to 100 degrees, 100% humidity. I do keep them in the shade. I do drape over a shade cloth. So you need that. You need water. So if you're living in a hot climate like Phoenix, whether it's hot and humid, doesn't matter. If it's hot, the newspaper and the worms will dry out. So you need to make sure you have a water source and keep the worms and the paper and the scraps somewhat moist, okay? I talked about you need some type of rock dust. So worms, they have gizzards. That's how they kind of break up the food. You need some form of grit in there. You can buy rock dust for $3 or $4 online. So the 3 different major worms that you can get are red wigglers, the smallest worm, but they're ferocious in composting. 2 African night crawlers, a little bit larger. They can take a little bit more heat. A little bit larger again than the red wiggler. And the last one is the European night crawlers, okay? And they're larger worms too. So you can go online and find any of those 3, okay? And by the way, I'll be giving away 1,000 red wigglers. I have a winner to announce by the end of this video, because all I did was ask you to comment on my previous 2 videos. So, and then I'll show you what you do here in a second to get the castings. I'll give you a close-up of my 2 worm ins, what's going on in those things, and really it's that easy, okay? So before I do, actually, let me do that first, and then I'll announce the winner of the contest. Hang tight, I'll give you a close-up. Okay, so here's a closer view of the 2 worm ins, what they look like. You can get different style canvas bags. I have one green and one kind of a camouflage color, but they're both the same size, and I think they sell a slightly bigger one now as well. Now, as you know, in Houston, we've gotten so much darn rain. Believe it or not, we've had 55 inches of rain this year, and it's only August in Houston. Average annual rainfall is about 32 inches. So they're a little bit soaked because we've had more rain this year, but that's okay. The canvas bags and the tie at the bottom allows the rain to soak through, but it does have the inside kind of moist. So you'll see there, this is a paper shredded pieces of paper I have in here. There's a lot of room in this bag. So what I do is I basically put the paper on top, and at the bottom or in the middle layers I put food scraps and the Purina worm chow. So as you'll see here, I'll kind of give you a close-up as best I can. So here's the paper, and then underneath you'll see there's worms. There's worm chow. You see there's worms in there? They're all in there, okay? And at the bottom, so you'll see there's a banana. I didn't cut that banana up, but if I opened it up, you'd see worms surrounded. And then at the bottom of this is the castings. Well, not there yet, but at the bottom of this bag are the castings. So in this burlap bag, I probably have 2,000 worms, maybe more, 3,000 worms. So that's that. This is the African night crawlers. Really easy to do. Again, I just let them do their thing. I throw food, worm chow, and paper in there, and they do their thing. And I'll show you how to get the castings out at the end, okay? So here's the red wigglers, a little bit different bag. See if I can, you'll see them, there you go. You see them down there? Okay, there's worms throughout. They're all over the place, okay? And there's some piece of fruit down there. There's some worm chow, you see. And there's more down there. So they're just all throughout this whole thing, okay? Now the interesting thing about this bag is that worms kind of regulate, so kind of like a fish, it won't ever get bigger than its tank. So these things will kind of stop reproducing if it gets too tight. Now this thing is usually filled up to about here with paper, but because of all the rains you can see it really compacted the paper. So that's that one. So those are the red wigglers, that's the African night crawlers. And then the nice thing about this is there's a screen that comes on top. You just zip it up and it keeps a lot of the gnats and flies out, which, as you know, with composting can be an issue. So at the bottom is pretty easy. At the bottom you'll see there's a draw tie, okay? And all you simply do is unloosen this draw tie, and at the bottom are all the worm castings. So you simply I put a 2.5 gallon bucket underneath, open this up, and out comes the castings. You can put those right into your plants, easy, okay? And that's really it. It's that simple. Now when you take your castings out, occasionally you'll have some worms that fall out with that. Sometimes I use a screen over the bucket so the worms get stuck on the top. All you simply do is take them out and throw them back into the bin, and they go to work for you again. So it's really that simple, folks. If you're not doing worm casting right now, I would encourage you to do so, especially if you have kids. Kids seem to love worms, and they take care of themselves. And with my previous videos and other videos, you can see all the great things that worm castings do for your plants. So that's it. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I want to keep it relatively short. Let me come back and announce the winner of 1,000 red wigglers. So that's the last episode of the series on composting, specializing in worm composting. I like to keep things easy. I travel a lot. I don't have a lot of time. It will cost you a little bit of money up front to get the worm in, but after that, you have food scraps, worm chow's cheap, and you have spare newspaper or paper that you can put into that. It's really that simple. They do it for you. They reward you with casting. So again, I've tried numerous methods. This is my easiest method to do it. There's numerous places online. Just search online, buy composting worms. Uncle Jim's Farm is my favorite, but you can choose your own favorite, okay? I'd start worm castings. The last thing I just failed to mention is that in the winter it does get cold, so you do need an inside place to bring them. So I use the garage, and I put a little space heater in the garage. It keeps it about 70 degrees, okay? Because most of us have winters, and the winters do get cold, okay? So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this series. The winner, all I ask you to do is make a comment from my first two videos, and the winner of 1,000 red composting worms, I will ship them to your home. Is the YouTube subscriber name is Texas Gal. So Texas Gal, G-A-L. All you have to do is send me a message by next Friday. So let's just say the 26th of August. Once I get that, send me a message through the YouTube system with your address, your shipping address, and I will send it to you as soon as I get your shipping address. If I do not hear from Texas Gal by the 26th of September, 26th of August, the second place runner-up will go, excuse me, the name is Dudley Arnold. Runner-up, second place, Dudley Arnold. So if Texas Gal does not respond by the 26th of August, it will go to Dudley Arnold. So Texas Gal, you're on the clock. Both of you, Texas Gal, send me a message through YouTube, the messaging system, my channel. I'll get it, respond to you, and then we'll go from there. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you start to get into some form of composting, whether it's worm composting or tumbler composting, or just composting your backyard with grass clippings. It's a great thing to do. It's good for our earth, and it's good for your plants. Until next time, take care. Bye.